belts. The supply list was missing 3 crates of liquid joy. And the radar was tracking a high-velocity shuttle. Binks! Stryker yelled over the ringing phones. The auditor is landing. We need to look like a military unit, not a traveling circus. Get the scavengers to hide the moonshine, and tell the nurses their support mesh is on the way. Meanwhile, Luger was watching from the infirmary window, giggling to himself as he saw Stryker's crew frantically trying to mop the docks with laundry detergent. It's working, Luger whispered to a confused nurse. The auditor will see this madness, and Stryker will be shipped to the Antarctic mines by sunset. Chapter 3. The Archduke and the 3 Princesses. The inspection was interrupted by an even more pressing diplomatic crisis. A biotech mogul, known as the Archduke of Neo-Monaco, had been forced to make an emergency landing at the outpost. He arrived with his 3 daughters' triplets, who were as beautiful as they were bored. Greetings, O exalted ruler, Luger said, having suddenly recovered enough to greet a billionaire. I am Director Luger. Allow me to show you our finest facilities. Actually, the Archduke sniffed, looking at Luger's singed eyebrows, the result of a recent coffee machine explosion. I found Commander Stryker's hospitality far more engaging. He took me for a ride on his interceptor. It was exhilarating. Luger's face turned a shade of purple, usually reserved for bruised plums. Commander Stryker is eccentric. But for tonight's grand gala, my aide Binks will escort your daughters. Stryker, knowing Luger was trying to hog the spotlight, had other plans. One of the scavengers, a man named Gruber, who could talk his way out of a locked vault, had already convinced one of the daughters that he was actually a secret billionaire undercover as a mechanic. The gala was a disaster of epic proportions. To impress the Archduke, Binks had tried to organize a traditional swamp dance, which involved 2 of the crew members dressing up in poorly constructed hula skirts and fake wigs. Are those men? The Archduke asked, pointing at the hairy-chested sailors wiggling rhythmically near the buffet. They are cultural ambassadors, Luger shouted, sweating profusely. It's a local tradition, very authentic. Just then, the real daughters appeared, having slipped away with Stryker to the Viper 7-3. When Luger tried to arrest the imposters, he accidentally tackled the Archduke's actual daughter, thinking she was a sailor in disguise. You brute, the Archduke roared. I will raid your headquarters in Washington. This outpost is a madhouse. Luger stood there, holding a blonde wig he had ripped off a very confused princess, while Stryker leaned against a palm tree, sipping a drink and waving goodbye. Chapter 4. The Gas of Happiness. With High Auditor Sterling's arrival imminent, Luger was back on the warpath. He had decided to convene a fitness board to officially strip Stryker and Binks of their ranks. I've got them now, Luger told the auditor. They are incompetent, insubordinate, and quite possibly insane. Stryker knew he needed a miracle. He turned to his lead chemist, Doc Higgins. Doc, remember that experimental euphoria gas the medbay was testing for dental surgeries? The stuff that makes you find everything hilarious? Nitrous oxide plus? Doc grinned. I've got a whole tank of it. The plan was simple. During the hearing, they would pipe the gas into Luger's office via the ventilation system. A happy Luger was a lenient Luger. As the hearing began, the auditor sat sternly at the head of the table. Luger began his opening statement. Gentlemen of the board, I intend to prove that Lieutenant Binks is a disgrace to the uniform. On July 16th, he accidentally torpedoed a garbage scow because he thought it was a camouflaged enemy sub. Suddenly, a faint hissing sound filled the room. Luger stopped. He sniffed the air. A slow, wide grin spread across his face. Potato peels. Luger giggled. He thought the garbage was potatoes. Oh, that's rich. That's a real knee slapper. The auditor stared. Director Luger, this is a serious proceeding. Proceedings are funny, Luger shouted, slapping the table. You're funny. Your hat is funny. Hey Binks, you're a chucky-wucky. You're my favorite little bumbling idiot. Luger then stood up, grabbed a vase of goldenrod, to which he was deathly allergic, and began dancing around the office, sneezing and laughing simultaneously. I love everyone. No fitness board. Give everyone a promotion. Give the Gators a promotion. The auditor watched in horror as Luger tried to hug a filing cabinet. This man is clearly suffering from combat fatigue, the auditor noted. Or perhaps he's just lost his mind. Hearing adjourned. Director Luger is to be placed under immediate medical observation. Stryker and Binks walked out of the office, trying their best to look somber, while Luger was carried out in a straitjacket, still humming a jaunty tune. Chapter 5. The Case of the Cyborg Gator and the Missing Payroll. The final crisis arrived in the form of cold, hard cash. The base payroll, $62,000, in unmarked credits, had arrived via shuttle. Luger, now back to his grumpy self and desperate to trap Stryker, decided to use the money as bait. I'll leave the wallet in a conspicuous place, Luger whispered to Binks. When Stryker's scavengers steal it, we'll catch them with the serial numbers. It's a perfect trap. When Stryker, but Sector 7 had its own ideas. A local swamp gator, nicknamed Sydney, had developed a taste for leather and human snacks. While Luger was busy hiding the wallet, Sydney emerged from the reeds, snatched the wallet and Luger's ID card, and vanished back into the muck. He ate it, Binks screamed. The gator ate the director. He didn't eat me, you numbskull, Luger roared, emerging from the bushes. But he took the money. Stryker, I know you trained that beast to rob me. A court-martial followed. Stryker, acting as his own defense attorney, brought Sydney the gator into the courtroom as a key witness. Your Honor, Stryker said to the terrified judge, my client, Sydney, is a victim of circumstance. He didn't steal the money. He found it abandoned. In fact, he's been trying to return it. At that moment, the gator opened its mouth and spat out a soggy, mud-caked wallet right onto the judge's desk. See? Stryker grinned. Honest as the day is long. Luger, in a fit of rage, tried to grab the wallet, but accidentally stepped on Sydney's tail. The gator hissed, and Luger ended up jumping onto the defense table, screaming like a terrified toddler. I object, Luger wailed. That gator is biased. He's in on the plot. The auditor, having seen enough, shook his head. Director Luger, you have tried to frame your officers. You have lost the payroll to a reptile, and you are currently standing on a table during a legal proceeding. I'm recommending your immediate transfer to a weather station in the North Pole. As Luger was led away for the final time, Stryker and his crew gathered on the Viper, 7-3. They had the money, mostly. They had their ranks, barely, and they had a new mascot. Hey Skip, Binks asked, holding a peanut butter sandwich out for Sydney. Do you think the new director will be as much fun as Lead Pipe Luger? Stryker looked at the sunset over the Azure Archipelago and smiled. Percy, in Sector 7, the only thing you can count on is the chaos. Now, pass me a sandwich. I think the gator's still hungry. And as the Viper, 7-3 roared into the night, the sound of laughter and the occasional hiss of a very happy gator echoed across the Rust Bucket Reef. The end. The Chronicles of Rogue Randall, Mayhem in the Azure Archipelago. Chapter 1. The Garter Belt Crisis and the Admiral's Shadow. The sun was beating down on the port of perdition with the kind of intensity that suggested it had a personal grudge against the Imperial Navy. Inside the sweltering, fanless office of Commodore Barnaby Bellows, the air was thick with the smell of stagnant seawater and the Commodore's own mounting hypertension. Wow, Bellows whispered, his voice trembling as he held up a requisition form. Wow, wow, wow. Bumble, look at this. Garter belts. We are fighting a global maritime conflict. The borders are being encroached upon by the ironclad raiders. And you, as my supply officer, are telling me the nurses need garter belts? Lieutenant Bumble Bixby stood at a rigid, albeit slightly swaying, attention. The nurses were very specific, sir. They said without the proper support, the morale in the infirmary would sag, irreparably, snap to it. Bellows barked, his face turning a shade of purple that matched the archipelagic sunset. Shake a leg. If the nurses need garter belts, find them. I don't care if you have to weave them out of seaweed. Everything is on my shoulders. I am the commanding officer of this godforsaken